The maid asked the lady if she was going to sell the jewelry again, and if the gentleman should find out that the family was running out of money. The woman replied that the darling had always been honest and incorruptible. He was now doing military service at a frontier outpost. They should not disturb him with such trivialities. A group of people were beating the guy up, saying that Chen was really useless. He was the same trash without cultivation. So what if he was the son of a general if he didn't know how to cultivate? He has such a strong father, the way he can even be, and such trash. He'll never be like his father. He's probably just fattened up. The guy was in a lot of pain. Suddenly, he remembered that he was in a battle with Zhou Yaoyang. People were shouting that the Pill Emperor must die. He did not expect to hear about heaven-defying Pill Emperor Chen. The man reported to the Pill Emperor that the materials were prepared and they could begin making the pills. The man began the manufacturing process. Chen couldn't believe that he really was a Pill Emperor. But he was a Chen who was not capable of cultivating. Obviously, he's just the most common trash. Suddenly, the guy woke up and there were already 2 women watching him. It was his mother, and also the maid. The mother said that this fellow had frightened her to death by his action, namely, that he had accepted a duel. But the guy just asked who it was, and said he had a splitting headache. The woman couldn't believe that Chen didn't recognize her mother. The boy was able to find out that he had as many as 14 broken bones. The maid told the lady that the young master had a head injury and needed time to recuperate. Mistress heard the doctor, so they better leave to give him time to rest. But in the meantime, the boy didn't understand why he could feel every wound. The doctor explained to the lady that this time the young gentleman was able to wake up, and it was a great luck. The woman replied that he was not very worried. She would have the servants take him home to the doctor right away. The woman was determined to get her son back on his feet. The boy realized that he could feel what was going on around him 30 meters away. He speculated that this was the legendary spiritual power of the alchemists. He also had the memory of the Pill Emperor in his head. Chen couldn't make up his mind after all. He is a trash or a Pill Emperor. Either way, having the power that was now in his memories should not be bad. Unfortunately, he found out that his spiritual bones, spiritual blood, and spiritual roots had been stolen by someone. He didn't realize who could go so ruthless in the end. But that person was better off staying out of the protagonist's sight. A maid came to see him, who I told the young gentleman that it was time to take his medicine. She asked the gentleman if he was feeling better. The boy replied that he was. Madam paid a great price for Dr. Yuan Qi's help. The external wounds have already healed. He tasted the medicine and realized it couldn't even be called a pill. His mother had been cheated. Their family had become impoverished, and she had undoubtedly sold her jewelry. The pills are divided into 5 grades: low grade, medium grade, high grade, and excellent grade. These balls could hardly even be called medicine. Fortunately, they had some healing herbs. He decided to use his spiritual power to channel them to cure them. Since he has the abilities of a Pill Emperor, Chen will be able to part with the life of a scum from this day forward. The maid brought the medicinal herbs that the young master had asked to buy. She did not expect that the young gentleman could already stand on his feet. The boy asked not to tell anyone about it. 6 hours later, his elevation will begin with this squirrel of a cure. He wanted to awaken the 12 inner perfect canons. From now on, he would be able to cultivate the secret art of the 9-star tyrannical body. However, it would take countless pills and medicines to train the secret art of the 9-star tyrannical body. Considering his family's current situation, the cost of the medicinal herbs needed to make the pills would be prohibitive. He needs to think about where he can get the money. Suddenly, the kid heard that someone recognized the young lord of the Lun family. It was Li Hao, who didn't expect that the young master of the Lun family was really so strong. The boy wondered how quickly he was able to get back on his feet again. They say good dogs don't block the passage, so Li Hao is a bad boy. The young lord of the Moon family apparently thinks that lying on the ground is more comfortable and he can't wait to be on it again. Li Hao is really all on Zhou Yaoyang. Li Hao swung around and replied, "This Chen is looking for death again." His hand was grabbed by another kid who replied that Li Hao had already found her. It was Shai Feng. Li Hao said not to poke his nose into other people's business. Shai Feng asked who he thought he was, daring to bully his brother. Chen was very grateful to brother Xioi. His interlocutor inquired about his wounds. He also remarked that he would find Zhou Yaoyang so that the protagonist could let off steam. But the boy replied that it was not worth doing. He could take care of his enemies himself, and suggested that he take a walk. Li Hao shouted out, if Chen had any skill at all, then he should enter the arena against him. The kid wondered if he dared to provoke him. Li Hao wondered if he would dare to come out against him or not. The protagonist replied that a simple battle is too boring, and if you play, you have to play big, so he wanted to raise the stakes. Li Hao asked what such a poor family could bet. He asked his brother Shi to borrow his sword, even though this sword isn't a high-ranked sword, but its price is around 5,000 gold, and the protagonist wanted to put up that sword. Li Hao inquired, but what would happen if, in the event of defeat, the protagonist refused to then Shi Feng? But this guy has nothing to worry about. Shi Feng is a man of his word, and he won't back down for anything. The battle arena outside the city. Both parties have signed an agreement, and it is impossible to refuse. Some wondered who was fighting today, because it seems to be something interesting. Others. I noticed the famous scum of the moon, Chen. They didn't understand what he was doing in the arena. The girl in black asked her sister if she wasn't worried about her fiancé. The girl in white just looked at him. If it wasn't for the prenuptial agreement between her father and the Moon family, she wouldn't be wasting her time here anymore. The opponent of the elder sister's fiancé is on the third heavenly layer. The fight has begun. The girl asked again, wondering if she really wasn't worried about him. She, on the other hand, replied that even if this guy dies, it's no big deal. The girl asked if the sissy didn't find the fact that he had grown up that much more handsome. If his sister doesn't like him, she'd better give in to her fiancé. She has a precise tongue with no bones. Since she likes this guy so much, then she should wait until the sister waives the marriage contract and the guy is at her disposal. The girl replied that she understood. Li Hao remarked that if the young lord of the Moon family surrendered now, he would be spared in his life. Lun Chen replied that he can only talk, not take action. They need to get this over with as soon as possible, because he still has things to do. The onlookers were shouting for Li Hao to finish this scum off sooner rather than later. He's known to everyone as scum. This scum must prepare himself to take his blow. That would be a blow from a fine craftsman. But the guy just hit below the belly. The audience was in shock. Then Lun Chen punched him in the face. He also threw his opponent off with a kick. The protagonist won. People didn't realize it had even just happened. It seems the sister's fiancé has a couple of aces up his sleeve. The girl replied in agreement and said it was time for them to get out of here. The kid returned his sword for his brother. Brother Chen was able to take out his anger. The protagonist thanked her brother for his generosity. The man replied that he had done nothing of the sort. Lung Chen replied that he had just won 5,000 gold pieces, so he wanted to treat him to tea. Also, Shi Feng didn't understand when he had managed to become so strong. The protagonist laughed and replied that he would tell him everything. This fight with Li Hao came at the right time, because money was tight right now. At least this dog is good for something. 4 hours later, he returned to the Baijiaoxing. The pharmacist asked if the gentleman wished to purchase some medicine. The boy replied that he would like to see the catalog of the store, but the guy actually came here to refresh his memory. The Feng Fu pill requires afterlife herb, underground dragon root, and a few other things. But he saw something that shocked him a little. In an instant, he no longer saw all of his money he had won from the duel, and was only able to buy 1 batch of pills, qi restoration, and 3 packs of ingredients for the Feng Fu pill. It increased his strength quite nicely. The guy was already starting to get excited that this was how much his strength had increased, but it only seemed that way to him. He realized he had made a mistake somewhere. Must try again to refresh the pill emperor's knowledge. And what he used was a simple alchemical fire originating from the Dantian. The cultivator could control it with his mind's will. It is common to use animal flames, for the reason that a painted fire-type demonic beast can help the alchemist save his own consumables. The highest rank of fire is spiritual, but the method of obtaining it is ancient and mysterious. Only powerful alchemists are able to control it. Fortunately, his other hand was free. He decided to rely on his own pills, restoring qi. 4 hours later. These recovery pills are really good. Thus, on the one hand, he replenished his qi with recovery pills. And on the other hand, he fused the Feng Fu pill with alchemical fire and so on for 3 days. He should try this. The protagonist's fire turned blue, and he tried to seal the heavens. But all his work was in vain. The guy couldn't believe it was real. Still, he was able to succeed. And even though they are 3 failed pills, they still have a medicinal effect. And compared to the topic lint that was given to his mother, these ones are much more effective. But the main character was completely exhausted. He had a dream from his childhood. He asked his father not to leave. The man told his son to be an obedient boy, and the father should leave, as he had important things to do as well. The boy woke up screaming and about his father. The protagonist realized that it was just a dream. He also noticed a pill lying in a box on the table, which must have been brought by his mother. For the sake of his mother and father and himself, he must grow stronger faster. The effects of the pill are felt from head to toe. He was glad that not all was lost and decided to create a better quality pill next time. Around his hand, fire reappeared. His house began to crumble. The protagonist successfully got out from under the fists. His mother ran up to him, as well as the other servants. The woman was worried and asked if the guy was okay. And what had happened in the first place? Lunchen replied that apparently this building has not been renovated for a long time. Mother asked the boy where he was going. He replied that today was the recruitment day for the Supreme Teaching Pavilion, so he had to run. Mistress ordered the girl standing next to her to help the young master dress. The woman wondered why she thought her son had changed. Everyone welcomed Brother Chen. It had been too long since they had seen each other. The protagonist replied that he was happy to see Brother Yu and the rest of the gentlemen again. They thought that Brother Chen had come to listen to Master Zhang's lectures. But the protagonist replied that he had come to read martial arts treatises. But everyone knew that Brother Chen couldn't cultivate, so it was unclear why he would need treatises. But they apparently hadn't heard that Brother had beaten up Li Hao a few days ago. They began to ask for guidance from Brother Chen. The fellow replied that he had merely come across a rare book on physiognomy and had made some progress. Brother Ma thought he was the kind of guy at the beginning of the street who intimidates people. But the boy replied that he had practiced long and hard, and that day he had seen Li Hao's interbrow and temples turn black, and only then had he accepted the challenge. That seems to be true. Then it would appear that Li Hao was not quite at full strength that day, and was not able to show his full potential. The kid wondered if Chen's brother could show his prowess and tell him why his fiancée was constantly hiding from him. The protagonist never imagined that this excuse of his would work. He agreed to do it, after which he offered his brother a piece to eat. If it was tasty, then he could have more. Thanks to his brother, he realized something. One must know measure and not be greedy. And the main character realized that this guy was really fit to be a philosopher. He said it well. But he's wrong about something. It's because he's fat. He should just eat less, because what girl could love a fat guy? Suddenly the kid noticed the young lord of the Li family, and wondered if his wounds had already healed. He even congratulated him. Li Hao called the guy a complete bastard. He decided to challenge him to a life and death arena. Since he can't bear to be separated from the afterlife so much, he'll make him a one-way wagon. Or like last time, he wants to up the ante. Li Hao agreed to this, even though he lost last time, but this time, Lun Chen's mother would get a corpse. He's bound to be here tomorrow at noon. The kid remarked that it was a matter of life and death, but it's not a problem for him. The young master of the Lai family's young master's eyebrows darkened. The breath of death has enveloped him. He already looks like a ghost. He won't survive the next day. There is also a case in which he will need the help of these gentlemen. He, as well as a few others, will join in. They don't like this Li Hao either. All the 80,000 he has accumulated, he will give to Brother Chen. Someone was ready to give his brother 60,000, and someone else 30,000. He wouldn't dare justify their trust. Suddenly, Zhou Yaoyang arrived with Li Hao and apologized for last time. He apologized sincerely. Who would have thought that he would beat the protagonist so badly that he wouldn't even be able to recognize his own mother? The kid realized that that healer had told him everything. Although he had severe wounds, they were all external injuries. The pills are for internal injuries. It seems the trouble of impoverishing the Lun family didn't come alone. It was now clear what their true purpose was. They have indeed united. If that's the case, it's time to teach him a lesson. Soon, Lun Chen will be able to beat him up that he won't even remember his grandmother. Such trash dares to brag. He must have just decided to die. Everyone was shouting for Zhou Yaoyang to teach him a good lesson. They may both be heirs of great families, but one is a prince and the other is dirt. He's nothing but a petty little nothing who can do nothing but crawl in front of him. Even if Yao Yang decided to hit him, he wouldn't dare to do anything about it. But the protagonist assumed he was saying it about himself. Everyone immediately shouted for this trash to let Yao Yang go. This trash is only playing with death. Someone wondered which one of them was so brave, and would dare to be the first to see the realm of the dead. It was Shi Feng's brother. They heard a shout of who dared to make noise here in the first place. Under the rules, the punishment for fighting within the walls of the library is a 1-month ban, the old man asked. Someone wanting to take the punishment. As it turned out, it was Teacher Zhang. The protagonist replied that it appeared to him and they were just doing an experiment. The teacher asked what the experiment was about, and the main character replied that they wanted to test how long one finger could resist 5. After conducting this experiment, they concluded that it was impossible to resist the combined forces. He as well as Zhou Yaoyang gained invaluable knowledge and insight into the power. Yaoyang agreed with the main character's words. The teacher admitted that if that was the case, He had nothing to punish them for. But they should be told that there was no noise here. Yao Yang told this guy to just wait. Lun Chen replied that he was always happy to continue with Brother Zhou on this experiment. Afternoon, Combat Techniques Hall. Li Hao reported to Brother Yao Yang that he had challenged Togo Lun Chen to a life-and-death duel. This time, he would definitely finish off this trash. He was also determined to avenge Yao Yang's brother. But Yao Yang replied that it was not yet time to kill him. Otherwise, he would have killed him himself last time. Yao Yang inquired about how he lost to him last time. Li Hao replied that he thought that beating the trash would be too easy, so he forgot about defense. This idiot must not underestimate him this time. But he should also let the protagonist live. Li Hao couldn't believe that Brother Yao Yang wanted to let him go so easily. He didn't say that Li Hao couldn't strip him of a couple limbs. Now that was something he was comfortable with. Their conversation had already been overheard by the most important character. He only laughed at their plan. The protagonist realized that he needed to brush up on his techniques, or else he wouldn't be any good in a fight. He has a 9-star tyrannical body as well as some knowledge of alchemy. This technique looks pretty good right here, but someone has already taken over the technique. He immediately began rereading the book, but the protagonist decided not to put up with it all. He apologized for just having an itchy hand. A guard arrived and asked who dared to make a mess in the battle technique room. He asked the main character what happened here and why the other guy was bleeding. But the guy suggested that this gentleman ask about it himself. Yao Yang said to the gentleman that must be Wang Man's face just itched and Lun Chen reached out. There was no fight here. He asked the master to sort it all out. Wang Man did not expect Brother Yao Yang to protect the trash. Li Hao gestured for him not to say anything. A man asked Yao Yang if he was the son of the prince of Manhwa County. The man replied that he was. The Lord told the one on the ground to get up and shake it off, and to keep out of his sight. Yao Yang told him, "Be patient for a while, for I will tomorrow Li Hao will avenge him. He will definitely repaint this Lun Chen." He found a technique called Bull Power. It turned out to be pretty good. Although among the 3 discharges, namely heavenly, earthly, human, it is the weakest technique. However, the way to develop the technique is quite simple to directly obtain the result. Spiritual power is also cool, and besides, quickly he can learn this technique. In this way, Lun Chen also found a rare technique of moving called wind-chasing step. And when the technique was mastered, it was already night. This was already the 2nd Feng Fu pill. The Feng Fu acupuncture point became a little bigger. However, right now in Feng Fu is still in the foundation laying stage. Next is mold making and condensing. But the stages don't end there. It takes many more pills to achieve them. He was finally able to internalize the Feng Fu pill, and now he could experience the result in practice. He also noticed a stone skating rink. He launched it upward. After that, the guy used a bull kick. That hit was pretty hard. Suddenly, he heard shouts of who was here and what had happened. He did the wrong thing again, and realized it was time for him to get out of here. Also, the protagonist didn't understand the rank of the secret art of the 9-star tyrannical body. The wind chase step is also useful. The boy found himself in a place that was unfamiliar to him. There was also some girl next to him. The guy recognized that she was so beautiful that she even looked like a fairy. The girl sat right next to him. It was too exciting for the protagonist. He's here too, after all. But then he guessed that this girl didn't seem to see him. That's not right. But still, the guy wondered why he was acting like a stumbling block now. Since she didn't see him, the guy decided to touch her, and she seemed to feel it. He woke up immediately. It was a simple dream after all. Lun Chen assumed it was because of the effects of the medication. At noon, the Battle Association was calling for people to come in and place bets. The battle would decide who would survive and who would die. Li Hao 1 to 2. Lun Chen is a 1 to 10 bet. One person bet 10,000 on Li Hao. Another person bet 20,000 on him. No one expected anyone to put as much as 300,000 on the moon Chenya. It was Shifeng. Shifeng asked if there was any problem. The man replied that there was no problem. He believed that Lun Chen would definitely do well this time, and these sheets would all lose. Li Hao had already arrived at the arena. He was determined that Lun Chen would die today. The man reported that the young gentleman had arrived an hour early before the contest began, so he inquired if he would be waiting here. But there were too few spectators who could see Lun Chen's disgrace. He decided to wait anyway. The girl informed her sister that this guy had already lost, but still wanted a rematch. The girl also asked if she had broken the prenuptial agreement with him, as they had already been here for a few days. The sister replied that she did not know how best to do it. If he loses today, and she immediately announces the dissolution of the engagement, it will be like finishing her beaten dog. Considering Sis's talent, she would reach the pre-heaven stage, or even the heavenly Tao stage in the future. They are definitely like heaven and earth, and they wouldn't work out anyway. But for some reason, she felt a little uncomfortable. Everyone immediately turned their attention to the man in the robe. They assumed that it was Lun Chen. Their assumptions were correct. It was indeed the show-off. Someone had informed Li Hao that his opponent had arrived. There were people who also supported Lun Cheng. Li Hao shouted for the protagonist to get up and accept his death. The main character made a joke about how the idiot is even on fire already. Li Hao is determined to repay that bastard 100-fold. Whether Hao really doesn't seem to realize that his tongue is his own enemy. He forced the protagonist himself. Time's up and it's time for the fight to begin. The protagonist was clearly ready for it. Li Hao asked the brat if he was finally ready to face his death. Wang Man yelled out to kill the bastard for him. Li Hao immediately decided to attack. The girls remarked that it was too fast, but the protagonist calmly dodged, after which he appeared behind his opponent. Lung Chen kicked him with his foot. Li Halo decided to strike him again and shouted for him to say goodbye to his life already. But it was all for naught. Li Hao was already furious. He used a stone punch. Lun Chen answered him with a blow from the bull. No one ever thought that Lun Chen could use martial arts. It's simply impossible. Li Hao asked to be spared. He even revealed that it was Zhou Yao Yang who had put him up to it. Yao Yang shouted out, "Yes, how dare Li Hao say such a thing?" Li Hao replied that he was telling the truth. It was Yao Yang who had instigated them to harm the Lum family, and afterward gave them a good reward. It turns out his hunch was right. Li Hao wanted to say that Zhou Yao Yang is the same dog, only there is someone behind his back. But he had no time to say the name of the one who had planned it all. An unknown assailant killed him. Lun Chen didn't know exactly who it was. It seems that this one the witnesses have decided to eliminate. The judge announced that Lun Chen had won. Those who had bet on Li Hao were certainly not happy. Yao Yang replied that it was time for them to leave. Xu's brother came up to him and asked him when this kid had gotten so strong. Lun Chen was now their hero. They also said that they ran to get money from the bets. He decided to wait until his honoring was over before heading to the Alchemists Association. Li Hao before his death wanted to say who was behind Zhou Yao Yang, but was killed. The similar case is really not easy. He is the only one who can do it now, so he needs to strengthen himself as soon as possible. After winning from Brother Shai, he received a crystal card with 3 million on it, which would speed up his cultivation. But suddenly he noticed a familiar person there. It was the same healer who then spoke to Mother. The kid said that he had come to take part in the alchemist's certification. The old man thought that he was in over his head for having decided to take part in it. But the boy replied that he had really come to take part in the examination. The old man has no time to talk to him here. He decides to call the guards and have them throw the protagonist out of here. If this old man has dates in his ears, he decided to tell him again. This master had come to take part in the alchemist's certification. Suddenly, the head of the association appeared and asked who dared to raise a ruckus here. It turns out this very great master of Yunqi. The old man replied that this fellow had suddenly come running in here to make a ruckus, and he would chase him out of here right away. But the protagonist only thanked Yunqi for saving his life. The Grand Master asked if this child had accidentally mislabeled himself. Lung Chen replied that he could not have been mistaken. His mother invited a great master and spent several 100,000 gold pieces to get a pill of tiger bones to heal his wounds. The old man asked the head of the association not to listen to his ramblings. The Grand Masters noticed that the old man knew the rules, and it was forbidden to bring out pills in the association. So he told this old man to get out of here. The old man shouted that he had grabbed the wrong person. He had already heard of alchemists taking out pills, but he had never imagined that his confidant would do such a thing. Sir is too generous. Because of this man, his mother had to sell her jewelry to buy medicine, so he decided to restore justice. The Grand Master noticed that this kid is quite interesting. Yunqi assumed that she didn't come to his association just to restore justice. The boy swept up the master's rightness. He had actually come to participate in the alchemist's certification. Yunqi recognized that he had a pretty good spiritual flame. He's still so young, and he already has that kind of power. Perhaps he really is fit to be an alchemist. The Grand Master told the lad to follow him to the place of certification. When they acquired in place, he was told to release his flame. Among the heavenly, earthly, mysterious, and imperial levels, he had already reached the imperial level. The second test was to use the spiritual flame to see how many pearls he could lift out of the water with his power. The protagonist managed to pick up all the pearls. It's a shame they can fully show their strength. He should still be a rookie. The Grand Master found out that he really did have a mysterious level. The strength of his spiritual flame, exclusively his talent, can be developed well. Lying on the ground, the protagonist inquired of her master if he had passed for certification. The The Grand Master replied that he had passed everything. He feignedly tried to get up and thank the master. Yunqi asked if this child was all right, how good he is at acting. The guy replied that this student wishes to learn the art of pillory. He also asked to take him as an apprentice. With his current strength, the Grand Master didn't even think of refusing to accept him as a disciple. The master told him to train hard and he will give him the opportunity. He will come to the lad when he peaks about the pill path. The guy confessed that he wanted the title of apprentice so he could leave this place. No one would dare to seek trouble with him. This kid is really interesting. The Grand Master will order him to be given a token. Also, he even wondered who would dare to give him trouble then. The kid thanked him. How fortunate he was to receive a token, as well as an Alchemist Association garb, as well as a spatial ring and a new alchemical crucible. Now he would definitely be able to create higher quality pills. With this thing, he would have a 50% discount on all the ingredients in the association. And he also has the right to read the records of previous generations of alchemists. The rest of us informed him that his mother wished to see him. His mother told him to greet the Menzies when the boy arrived at their door. This girl is his fiancée. The protagonist recognized that she is very beautiful. This girl seemed very familiar to him, for he had seen her in his dreams before. He didn't expect her to turn out to be his fiancée. Mother wondered if the lad would say nothing in response to her greeting. The guy also greeted her in return. The woman decided to leave them to move the sweets while they talked here. There was an awkward silence between them. The protagonist offered her a seat. She refused to do so. There was something to discuss with him, and so she suggested a change of scenery. He asked the girl to wait, for he must tell his mother. And now he's finally back. He didn't expect her to have a demonic idea of a rank 2 beast. Menzie told him not to be afraid, for it was her summoned griffin riding beast. The girl told him to also sit down behind her, and then they finally took off. The protagonist grabbed her waist. The girl told him to watch his hands. Lunchen apologized to her. He just hasn't learned to fly yet. The girl wanted to already start discussing the topic for which they went to such a place, and the guy immediately realized that she wanted to terminate the marriage contract. Menzie inquired how he knew about it, and the protagonist replied that he was just guessing. He thanked the girl for not saying it in front of his mother. She shouldn't blame herself. His family's affairs of late have long been no secret, so he asked mother to bring the prenuptial agreement. It was a mistake their fathers made. They were on good terms and decided to merge their families. But there is no way they can force their children to do it, so she shouldn't be so worried. From this day forward, he will train hard, and when he becomes stronger, he will definitely find her. And even if she broke that contract today, he would still look after her. The girl thanked him for those words. It's a good thing she doesn't hate him. Then, if he continued to stir up passion, she would surely fall in love with him. But suddenly he felt something. It was another person riding a demonic beast. As it turned out, it was an older fellow student of Cheese. It took so long for the youngest to return, and the master sent a fellow apprentice to fetch her. The kid also noticed the protagonist standing near them. Menzie said no nonsense, and all she did was ask this gentleman expensively. She thanked the gentleman. But this student clearly didn't like something. He immediately attacked the protagonist. He was defended by another girl. She also knew the older key. She didn't even think he was the kind of man to raise his hand against mortals. Isn't he afraid he'd be in trouble if the master found out what he'd done? The man replied that Junior was mistaken and all he wanted was to test him. It's pretty clear the bastard wanted to maim him. He remembered the creep. The girl turned to him and explained that he was just internal. The cultivation in the Fenhun Palace. And his cultivation is quite high. The protagonist will definitely have to try his best. She also wanted to leave with the older Chai. The protagonist was reminded of something, but he couldn't figure out what it was. He called the protagonist trash. Wherever he went, there was someone just like him. Anyway, today, he got what he wanted. Even though he gave her the prenup, her attitude towards him is pretty good. Moreover, upon receiving the contract, she did not tear it up on the spot, but carefully hid it. This girl is so beautiful, and there is definitely a crowd of admirers lining up behind her. The older student who came after her was quite clingy. Who knows, there might be more just like them out there. But there's also one key point. He flew here on her demonic beast since he's going back. The estate of the Moon family. I think something exploded again. But no one's running to that sound anymore. The family seems to have gotten a little used to it. This time he has all the pills of average quality. He decided to give it a try. The following days, the protagonist continuously practiced alchemy. The day of recruitment to the Pavilion of Supreme Teachings came unnoticed. Compared to the past, his strength has increased quite a bit now. If he keeps this up, it won't be long before he can get his bride back. This dude will stain the flowers with his blood. Supreme Teaching Pavilion. Everyone immediately noticed the Lun Chen who had arrived. Everyone was talking about how he must have a high cultivation. He threw something for Brother Shai, and it was a chi condensation pill. The others immediately ran over to look at this pill. It really is a good thing. The protagonist explained that it is a medium-quality condensation pill. Everyone wanted to see the pill. The protagonist calmed them down. He explained that he had already made each of them 1 vial of spirit enhancement potion. They need to take 3 drops every day. Take fasting, and in a week there will be results. No heavy food, no alcohol, and no solitude. They will feel the effect in 7 days and will progress to feeling chi in half a month. And how long they will have to develop to condensation will depend on how hard they try. Brother Shai didn't even know how he should thank Lun Chen. The protagonist replied that he didn't need all that, and asked how he should even respond to it. He just needs that when he needs his brother's sword, he should not hesitate for a second. They cannot even express their gratitude in words. They make a respectful bow to Mr. Moon. The main character decided to go out and try the sweets, since all he ate were pills. He was offered a cup of tea. And then suddenly the 7th prince arrived, and he was accompanied by the very same Zhou Yaoyang. Everyone immediately bowed to greet the 7th prince. How to live bravely on the part of Lun Cheng, not even bow. In front of him, a member of the imperial family. He refuses to follow the etiquette. Has he decided to rebel against him? The protagonist asked Wang Man if he wanted Lun Chen to introduce him to a dental healer. A petty noble heir like this guy with no official rank or any accomplishments dares to not bow down to the prince. The guy explains that he's just a kid, so he doesn't even care about him. He should go back to where he came from. That bastard is definitely looking for death, and the 7th prince has ordered his arrest. Wang Man immediately flew at him, but the protagonist just tossed it aside. After which, Yao Yang performed a 6 light strike. The protagonist threw the table at him. Yao Yang successfully destroyed it, after which the protagonist took this blow with ease. Now it's the turn of the Meng Cheng. He immediately plowed his opponent to the floor, after which the protagonist reclined him to the others. The 7th prince trembled with fear. The boy immediately inquired what he was up to. The boy begged to stay away from him. The protagonist replied that he shouldn't have been forced to do it. Therefore, it is too late to blame him for what he will do. But suddenly he showed his alchemist's tablet and asked if the boy needed to bow down to the prince. The boy replied that he did not need to do so. Also, the prince hastily already wanted to leave, and the protagonist asked again if he wasn't going to stay with them. The boy replied that he still had things to do, so he would go. The protagonist turned around to approach Yao Yang. Shi Feng already thought that the kid wanted to kill him, but he was only pointing out that the good ones don't live long, and the bad ones live a long time and also still chorus. Therefore, this guy would definitely be fine. Shi's brother realized that the protagonist was just trying to help him. If they didn't want him to die, they should get him out of here soon. They also decided to leave a couple of people here to clean up. Since Yao Yang had bribed the guard last time and he didn't show up again, Lun Chen spent the first half of the day in the martial technique hall. He wondered why on earth the guy couldn't find any normal techniques. He had been able to find one last time, and that proved that luck really wasn't permanent. He also noticed something interesting there. They've been deep cleaned. Suddenly he found some more skin. Suddenly he heard a voice about how he had been called scum. He immediately discarded what was in his hands. He just felt a very strong energy. Turns out it was the division of the heavens. Even the name here is too presumptuous. Who can even understand this nonsense? Except for the 9 red dots, there's nothing else. Suddenly, it was announced that the battle technique room was closing, and everyone needed to bring their techniques back and leave the room. That means he'll have to wait a month again, and he doesn't have that much time. He noticed that everyone must have left by now, but suddenly a guard came up to him and asked him if this kid was in a hurry. He also asked what he was holding. The protagonist replied that he wanted to take this tainted hide page to his home and study it. And also, as a token of appreciation, he was willing to gift this Qui condensation pill to the Lord. The man replied that he had not seen anything and accepted the gift. The boy immediately ran away and thanked the gentleman. The guard did not understand where the boy had come from. Now he'll get to study that tainted hide. Who knows, maybe he'll find something useful in there. Suddenly someone threw a net on him. He was now being pulled by a hawk. Riding the hawk was a girl who asked what kind of insolent slave dared to bully her little brother. The protagonist wondered who was taking him somewhere this time, and more importantly, why. The hawk let him go. When the protagonist landed on the ground, a girl appeared in front of him and called him insolent and a slave. If she didn't teach him a lesson today, he would never learn to respect the masters. The guy immediately stood up and asked who she was. Had this pretty girl come looking for trouble with him because of some malcontent of his. She called him a shameless rascal. This guy dared to bully her little brother. She'll blow off steam for him tonight. And with someone like the main character, she certainly wouldn't be, even if she was blind. She threw herself to overpower him. The guy asked first so she could explain it properly. But suddenly, the girl caught on a rock and fell right on top of the guy. He touched her breast by accident, and she called him a scumbag. The girl wanted to hit him, but the guy abruptly disappeared somewhere. He replied that it was painful and asked who the girl was after all. The girl again called him a slave who doesn't know his place. The third princess is here to take his dog life. Chen replied that this silly girl of hers had uncoordinated movements. She kept wanting to hit him, but it wasn't any problem for the guy. Suddenly, she wanted to bite his hand. The guy didn't understand what was in her head at all and asked what she was doing. And it's time to recognize that the protagonist has won. The girl asked, "Oh, how dare he say that?" The main character screamed in pain and hit her. She blushed even more and replied that she would nail him. The realization came to him that she was a girl after all, and it was best to stop. He had all the teeth marks on his hand. The protagonist asked her if she was finally able to blow off some steam. The princess wondered in return why he didn't fight back. The kid replied that he doesn't fight girls. She decided to help him. He agreed to it. The princess realized that this guy was different from those slobbering boys. He's the first one who dared to fight back. His eyes are so expressive. They are the eyes of a man who fears neither heaven nor earth. He would rather let himself go through pain than hurt her. Maybe he really hadn't done anything like that to his brother, and she just hadn't grasped the situation. The princess said he shouldn't apologize, and he should consider them even today. But that's not what the protagonist wanted to say. But everything that needed to be said had already been said. So the girl asked what else he wanted to say. The protagonist replied that this beauty had bandaged the wrong hand. She immediately asked why this one was reluctant and didn't say anything to her before. Chen remained silent. He also added that her younger brother was being used. Zhou Yaoyang wanted to take advantage of him. The princess apologized to him for slandering him. The boy replied that there was no need to worry, because he was already used to it. Even though the protagonist is a badass, she feels that he is not deceiving her or twisting her heart to gain her favor. So she offered friendship. The protagonist agreed, as long as she didn't catch him with a net. In the long time she had lived in the palace, this was the first time she had met someone to whom she could really pour her heart out. For Chen, this was also the first time he had met someone worthy of the imperial family. He wanted to help and find out the reason why the emperor had stopped seeing her. Only his conscience told him not to overreact to this rude but still naive girl. Prince Zhengyuan's estate of the Lun family. The kid noticed that his mother was surrounded by someone. He immediately approached her and asked if everything was all right. The man said that Chen unnecessarily severely wounded the noble heir of Zhou Yaoyang. They received orders to capture him, and the protagonist turned to Bao and told her to help take the mother to the house. And the boy will take care of things here for now. They're just chi condensation stage under cultivators, and they already dare to call themselves soldiers. They're just pathetic dogs. The man asked not to be forced to chop off the head of that insolent child. If he dared to draw his sword, his head would immediately fall to the ground. The man immediately wanted to attack the protagonist with the desire to kill him. Using his arm, he blocked that punch. Then he wanted to strike him, but the man deflected his head in time. The man wanted to kick him, but the protagonist jumped. After which, he immediately drew his sword. The kid deftly snatched the spear from the other guard and immediately rushed towards his opponent. He took the sword out of the man's hands, after which he immediately dealt with his opponent. The subordinates immediately could not believe their eyes that the commander had lost. Chen dared to kill their esteemed commander. Isn't he afraid that they will destroy Prince Shenyuan's estate? Finally, there's a Manchu prince. Manhuang appanage Prince Zhou Chengqing. Today in the literature hall, he committed crimes against the 7th prince and severely wounded his son. And now he has also killed a loyal commander. The appanage prince ordered him to be seized. And the main character immediately showed the order of the war room and asked if he and his old eyes wouldn't recognize what he was holding. The Udalno prince did not understand where he got the token from. The protagonist commented that the apprentice prince today surrounded the home of a disciple of the Alchemists Association and bared his sword. Despite the fact that the emperor has a policy of protecting alchemists, these are pretty serious offenses. The appanage prince asked the lord not to be so hot-headed. He didn't know anything about it. His commander acted on his own. He would return immediately and investigate and give him proper compensation. The boy also asked what about your trash in his yard. The prince said that he would get servants to clean it up right away, but the kid didn't seem to like it. So the appanage prince said he would clean it up himself. The guy noticed that the place seemed to still be dirty. Mentally, the prince was saying that he would not forget today's humiliation so easily. It happened so suddenly and quite unexpectedly, and so this servant did not dare to act on his own. He asks the fourth prince for forgiveness and guidance. This guy really managed to become an alchemist. Fourth Prince Chu Fu. He has done the right thing. He should go back and properly follow all the movements in the Zhenyuanhu manner. Only he should never be seen by anyone. The appanage prince asked, "What about the Lun Cheng?" Chu Fu said, "Don't bother him what time it is. As long as this pawn remains on the board, even with the help of patrons, he cannot escape his fate. The prince will see how long he can resist." The protagonist has arrived at the Alchemists Association to find a great master. But he doesn't even know if Yunqi is here. If it's not here, he'll go look for it. Or maybe better yet, ask someone. The protagonist asked the girl if she knew where Grandmaster Yunqi was now. The girl immediately asked who he was and why he was looking for a great master. He realized this girl was being obtuse and decided to go ask someone else. The girl told him to stop because she was talking to him. She also asked him why he was being so rude. He took stock of the fact that she seemed to have come here to get her medicine. She asked what he was talking about. The guy replied that if she had a problem with her head, it was better to stay at home and not freeze the people around her. These words made her very angry and she wanted to just kill him. Fortunately, he managed to dodge her blow. The guy realized he didn't even need to hold back. She really did seem to have a problem with her head. He immediately threw her off with a kick. The girl landed successfully and shouted that he was finished. But suddenly they heard a shout that they needed to end it all. It was Yunqi. The girl called him a master. Because of her words, the protagonist thought that she was also a disciple of a great master. Yunqi replied that she was wasting her time since he was not taking a disciple, but she didn't want to leave. If he didn't take her on as an apprentice, she would come here every day, exactly until he accepts her. But this wench must remember that physical force is not allowed in his guild. If she breaks the rules again, he will chase her out of here. He also told Lun Chen to follow him. The boy apologized for being rude. The Grandmaster replied that it didn't matter, because he had seen everything. The kid saw the painting on the wall. It was Yunqi's late wife. She really looks like that girl. When the Great Master saw her for the first time, he couldn't believe his eyes. But this guy really shocked him. He was able to send a 9th stage condensation expert flying without any spiritual power. The kid wanted to justify himself somehow, but he didn't think of revealing his secrets either. The master replied that there was no need to worry, for everyone had their secrets. But a man like the protagonist should not throw away his time. Otherwise, he would bury his magnificent talent. The boy was most grateful for the reminder. The Grand Master also asked why he had come here. He would like to buy some ingredients on credit from the guild, and once he could create a pill, he would repay it. The Grand Master marveled that he could already create pills. The protagonist replied that he would like to ask the master to instruct him. If he wants to get ingredients, he has to get certified. The kid passed the certification and got a 2nd-class credit. Materials can be paid for with either pills or gold. Cries could be heard for him to just die. It was clear that someone was beating someone up. The guy walked up to the crowd and asked what was going on here. It was explained to him that the idiot on the ground had built a chimney 30 meters high, and there should have been a well. Although this person is not a cultivator, but he possesses mighty strength. The main character came out to them and offered them 100 gold pieces. The others began to resent who he was and why he was bothering them. That should be enough to rebuild this pit. They, to her, decided to leave, for the young gentleman had settled the matter. The protagonist touched the battered man and replied that he had settled the matter. He didn't expect anyone to save him. The protagonist calmed this brother down and told him to get up. The man thanked him. Lan Chen also heard his stomach grumble. The big guy the protagonist rescued is called a man. Although he grew up to be such a bulky guy, he is like a child with development, pure of heart and mind. What's more, he has no family. Suddenly, a small child was almost run over in front of them. The protagonist immediately grabbed this child. The man asked what lowly slave dared to block his way. Amon stood up for them. Lung Chen asked him if he was okay. Amon replied that he was fine. Such a strong blow left only a mark on his back. The protagonist also wondered who was riding in the wagon. In broad daylight, he makes a disturbance in the city. The kid thanked Amon for having his back to him. Amon replied that it was his brother who saved him first, not to mention 1 blow. Even 100 blows would not express his gratitude. The fellow suggested that he must be hungry and offered to stop by one shop. Lung Chen was touched by the cleanliness and sense of duty of the Amon. Although they had only just met, the main character already knew they were destined to become friends. Amon's ability to stuff his stomach made the protagonist's eyes water. But this did not prevent the Chechen Moon from keeping Amon. 3 days later, the Moon family's estate, a subordinate arrived to see him. She reported that there was nothing left in the manor to comfort herself. The mistress sent her to sell her jewelry to buy flour. The boy realized that the Amon had eaten everything. He handed her a bag of money and told her to go shopping first, and he would come over afterward. The protagonist took the pills he had been making for the past few days and went to the Alchemists' Association. After paying off his loan for the past ingredients, he sold all the remaining pills to the association, receiving several million gold. She also noticed that Bao was waiting for him near the estate of the appanage Prince Zheng Yuan. The boy wondered if something was wrong since she was waiting for him here. The girl replied that Mr. Shi had just recently come to invite him to a banquet at the Heroic Meeting House to celebrate his transition to the Kui condensation level. He replied that he would go immediately. He also gave her a card with 2 million on it and appointed her to manage the finances of the estate. He also ordered to buy back the jewelry that mother had previously sold, even if the price was tenfold. And before going to the feast, Lun Chen took care of Amon to introduce him to his friends. They all ate and drank together. Suddenly, the lad was shouting that he didn't want to share a meal with such lowly wretches. The man asked, wondering if they hadn't heard anything. They should get out of here now. They recognized each other. The man swung his whip and called them lowlifes. Shifeng asked how he dared to come to his feast and make a commotion. But that man only deceived him. That man immediately wanted to kill Shifeng, but the protagonist stood up for him. But someone kicked him. Afterward, the very man who was driving the wagon at the time wanted to kill the protagonist. Suddenly, Amon shouted how dare he attack his brother Moon. Lun Chen didn't even think that he possessed such a huge and destructive power. However, his opponent is a QI condensation expert. There's no way for them to pull it off. It seems that the only thing that can save them is the energy explosion pill. This pill can raise the strength of the recipient by 3 layers. However, it has a strong side effect. Suddenly other people appeared and told everyone to stay in their seats. The 6th Prince Chu Yang asked what was going on here after all. The prince of the great empire Xiaxia Chan Feng said, "Is this really how their empire treats a guest?" The kid replied that this guy had the eyes of a blind dog, so he decided to give him a little lesson instead of his master. Chu Yang asked who he was. Lun Chen introduced himself. Although this is the first time the prince of the great empire is in the capital, but he has already heard about this guy. So the principal asked if Brother Lun would do him a favor and have a few drinks with him. Lun Chen apologized and explained that this junior had already had too much to drink. Therefore, he decided to leave. He also told Amon that they were leaving. Chang Feng will look forward to their next meeting. The man inquired of the master why on earth he had not allowed him to kill the lad. The prince of the great empire had swept him up so he wouldn't forget the purpose of their visit. Therefore, let this fellow live for a few more days. Lun Chen asked, wondering what that was just now. When he saw that this man was about to hit Brother Moon, his head buzzed, and he rushed forward. And the protagonist touched his hand and realized he only had 4 meridians. And it was as if all the cells were in anabiosis. He didn't understand how that was possible. And the protagonist asked Amon if there was something he ate that caused him to have excess energy. Amon replied that it was beef. Lun Chen asked how much he could eat at a time. At first he named 50 kilograms. The protagonist asked if that was enough. Then Amon added 1 bull. The protagonist told him to tell the truth. After that, Amon said about 5 bulls. Lun Chen asked him if he was sure. He admitted that he had never completely eaten a bull. Eventually the guy decided to buy him a farm, and then he could get drunk. Amon thanked his brother. 7 days later, the Moon family's estate. Suddenly he started coughing up blood. He also noticed that 3 energy swirls had appeared in the Dantian. He assumed that he was able to recreate the Dantian. So the guy decided to continue and check again afterward. He already wanted to sit the pill down. But suddenly, he saw Chu Yao come to him as well. She saw that he was sitting idle, and suggested that they go together, take a walk in the Moose Mountains. When such a beauty invites in his, heaven itself would punish him for refusing. It pleased her, but she still called him a flatterer. The girl also noticed that he was concerned about something. He replied that he needed to learn a high-level technique, but there was no technique. The girl offered her help, for she had perfectly mastered 13 kinds of high-level techniques. But from the look in his eyes, the girl realized he was doubting her. Lun Chen replied that he didn't doubt, he just didn't believe. Chu Yao decided to show him everything. She attacked him. The boy covered his mouth. Chu Yao wondered why he didn't dodge. The guy explained that if he ducked, she wouldn't hit. And then it wouldn't have been interesting. The guy's a fool, for sure. Suddenly she clung to him, talking about how he felt so good next to him. The protagonist didn't realize what was happening. He decided to change the subject and talk about the techniques again. The boy wondered if what she had said about them was true. The girl replied that it was true, and if he didn't believe it, just high-watch it. Using the technique, she struck the tree. Shu Yao swept up that this strike was called scorched clouds. He asked permission to examine her body. The girl replied that they had only recently met after all, and asked if they were in a hurry to get it over with. The guy barked out what she was imagining there. He just wanted to inspect her tribute Tian with spiritual power. Lun Chen discovered that the Dantian Chu Yao had also been altered by someone. Moreover, she didn't even know about it herself. Due to the threats of third parties, the gifted and beautiful Chu Yao had to be negligent in cultivation to stay safe. Therefore, she did possess high level and techniques. However, due to her own limitations, she was unable to unleash their full power. Fortunately, Lun Qin agreed to figure out a way for the girl to restore her tribute Tian. In return, she agreed to teach the guy a technique. Amana, as soon as he saw the protagonist, he immediately rushed towards him. The guy asked if he had been eating well the last few days. He is full every day and his whole body is full of energy. The protagonists also asked if he had learned to cultivate. But Aman didn't even know what the word meant. It's amazing because his tribute Tian releases a large amount of spiritual energy. This kid is really talented. Lun Chen will help him feel the flows of the Tang Tian. He should memorize the feeling well and be able to cultivate it on his own later. The protagonist began to pour his energy into it. Aman punched the wall. He apologized to him for not being able to hold back. Now Lun Chen understood the hidden power of Aman. The protagonist opened the curtains. He also saw a girl standing there. He remembered it was a Menzies. Lun Chen was happy to see her again. The girl stumbled back and fell into his arms. He could smell wine on her, so she was drinking wine. Menzie asked if he had also come out to admire the moon. The protagonist asked her to keep her cool. The girl replied that she was perfectly fine, and if he didn't believe it, he could take a closer look. He immediately stepped away from her with words to the effect that it should not be done. She flopped down on him, talking about how for some reason she was getting really hot. Lun Chen told her to quickly throw something over herself. She moved closer to his face, saying his name. The guy blushed more and more and told her to finally get dressed. The girl replied that she didn't want to do that. She also asked if he was hot. The guy didn't understand why he was afraid, because everything was going straight, just like in a dream. He began to assure himself that it was all a dream. He should pull himself together. Even if it's a dream, it's still not right. The guy replied that she was drunk. She asked the guy to help her. He asked what she needed help with. The girl began to undress more and more. He watched the whole thing with a flushed face. But suddenly he woke up. He did not understand why he was having the same dream again. He also apologized to the girl and said that he did not want to dishonor her. She should wait for him, for he would soon fulfill his promise. The inner pavilion of the palace. The Lord has been reported that there is no news from Zhen Yuanho. Lun Tianxiao really doesn't understand what is good for him. The fourth prince, whose name is Chu Fu, ordered his son killed. Maybe this will make him come to his senses. He must gather his strength, and the prince will take care of the rest. Lun Chen continued practicing. He had greatly strengthened the Dantian curls and had already broken through to the 7th layer. He was approached by a boy who asked if he was the young master of the Moon family. The protagonist replied that he was. It turns out that this boy is one of the stewards of the Clouded Terram. By the order of the head of the Fen Cloud Theorem, he delivered him an invitation. They are asking the Lord to attend their auction this year. It's the largest auction in this empire. The main character asked if they had an auction catalog. The guy had a list of the last 10 items with him. He spotted a remarkable commodity there, namely the 1,000-year-old star fusion grass. If the gentleman has any pills, he can also auction them. The protagonist replied that he would come to their auction after the Lantern Festival. Everyone was talking about how beautiful he was. Someone talked about him being the first handsome man in this empire. His friends were already standing there as well. The Empress Dowager has arrived. After her, Prince Xia Changfeng, Princess Xiao Baichi, Grandmaster Wei Tsang arrived. The Great Master of Yunqi had also arrived. It was noticeable that the relationship between the Grand Master and Wei Chang was not good. Wei Chang said that it had been a long time since they had seen each other. Yunqi asked if he had decided to see the world before he died. The festival is starting. Everyone looked at the princess excitedly. They talked about how it was the princess who was so beautiful. The protagonist noticed that Chu Yao wasn't the same today as usual. Chang Feng wanted her to be his tonight. Suddenly, Chu Yao threw something at him. He didn't know what he should do about it now. The girl replied that there was a message for him inside. There was indeed some sort of scroll inside. The dragon sails across 4 oceans. The phoenix flies across 9 lands. We may be separated by seas of blood, but we will never stray from our path. Dragon and phoenix will grow old together. Chang Feng was angry and didn't understand what it all meant. He would kill Lun Chen. Also, the Empress Dowager promised this girl for him. The Empress Dowager ordered the guards to help the princess down from the stage, for she was tired. The Grand Master offered to put the princess near him, for he could heal her. The Empress Dowager thanked him for this. Weicang said that he had also prepared something for the festival. The Empress Dowager replied that the Great Master's event must be a beautiful spectacle. Princess Baichi is precisely his apprentice, and today she will show them a performance. The protagonist recognized the same girl he met in the Alchemists Association. It turns out she's from the Great Xia Empire. He also mentioned the main character, who was a disciple of a great Yuan Qi master. He also seemed to want the guy to show an interesting sight. Lun Chen immediately arrived and asked for their guidance. The prize will be the spiritual fire of a second-ranked fire leopard. The winner will receive it. He greeted the girl again, and she must have heard her master. So he inquired as to how he should amuse himself with her. Baichi replied that if he lost, he would kneel down and kiss her feet. All the materials have been prepared, so the competition is about to begin. In fact, this competition was well planned by the representatives of the Great Xia. Baichi was given the materials already processed. The purpose of all this is to embarrass Lun Chen in front of the imperial house. All the girls' actions were polished, as if they were memorized. Lun Chen was surprisingly slow to make, holding back the power of fire to compensate for the shortcomings of the ingredients. 2 hours had passed, so the masters were asked to check everything. They both finished at the same time. Both pills were of medium quality. However, Lun Cheng's pill belonged to the 3rd stage of medium quality. The strongest one had won. That Meng Chen fooled them again. Chang Feng had heard that there was a fighting competition going on next, so their fighters would like to participate as well. She decided to do as the prince said, hoping that it would be a worthy spectacle. He chose Huang Chang to participate. Even though he may be an alchemist, but as a fighter, he is definitely trash. Huang Chan from the Great Xia is waiting to share his experience. Shi Feng replied that he could insult him himself, but he would not allow him to insult the protagonist. The protagonist tried to calm him down somehow, because this is a clear provocation. But today, the guy does not think of listening to him. He entered the arena. Shi Feng shouted that he would have to answer for his words. They immediately started fighting. Huang Chan asked if that was it. Then it was his turn. He threw the hairdryer Shi onto the pavement, after which he stepped on his hand. He was immediately approached by Lun Chen, who asked if his brother was all right. The winner of this round was Huang Chan from Great Xia. Lun Chen replied that he had overstepped his bounds. Since he wanted the battle so badly, he would get it. He approached the Empress Dowager with a desire to oppose Huang Chan in the arena of life and death. Huang Chan realized that this was too easy. The Empress Dowager has given her consent. The arena of life and death will set things right. He also supports it. Except the main character there will die, and he can regain his spiritual flame. The battle of Lun Chen against Huang Chang in the arena of life and death begins. Huang Chan wondered why the guy was looking at him so intently. He decided to pluck out those eyes first thing, but something happened that no one realized. Lun Chen told that idiot to kill himself at full force. Now that's interesting. He attacked the protagonist again. Lun Chen also kept up with him, landing his own strikes. Yunqi realized that his disciple was no longer as simple as he thought, but Lun Chen opened up, and that gave his opponent a chance to strike. He was thrown right back against the wall. Chu Yao immediately shouted out his name. The girl immediately appealed to the Great Master, but the man replied that the princess would not be able to prevent them anyway. Even if he has to part with his honor, the Great Master will definitely save Lun Chen. But the surprise on the main character's body wasn't even a scratch. Chang Feng ordered his fixer to stop wasting time and finally get it over with. That was the end for that cocky kid. He used the sandstorm punch. The kid was able to counter this attack with confidence. He realized that things were bad. That blow knocked him back. A man was falling, destroying the roofs of houses. The girl shouted that Lun Chen had won, but the Great Master replied that his opponent was not finished yet. He was still alive and said that the brat was definitely finished now. No one expected him to turn out to be a werewolf. The main character also realized that this Huang Chang must be a beast cultivator. Huang Chan wounded him. Lun Chen slapped him in the face, but it didn't even do him any damage. The beast cultivator asked the guy if he had anything to say before he died. Not only is it strong, but its speed is faster than that of a regular cultivator. He immediately threw back the luncheng. The princess shouted for the master to help him. The great master replied that they were only scratches for the lunchen. They both hid their true strength. But Huang Chan had an advantage. Master suggests that Lun Cheng must also have a trump card up his sleeve. Realizing the whole situation, he decided to still use what he didn't want to use so early, pill flame armor. They didn't understand how it was even possible. He immediately let loose an attack for the beast cultivator, but it didn't hit. After that, the protagonist decided to try again. His fur began to burn. It stands to reason that all animals are afraid of fire. The man shouted that he was tired of watching this circus and told his subordinate to kill him already. Suddenly sand appeared in the arena. The others saw nothing. As it turns out, he can use the Great Blood Explosion technique. It's an extremely terrifying secret art. But the price is extremely terrible. Even if the expert survives him, the self-cultivation base stops. And he couldn't advance further for the rest of his life. Lung Chen is definitely in danger. But then he was stopped, asking about where his brother was going. Yunqi pushed him away. Weitsang used some kind of technique on him. His hand turned green. The man said that Lun Chen will die today. But the kid clearly didn't think so and used the fire cloud palm. Everyone was watching their fight with genuine interest. Surprisingly, the werewolf lost. The guy realized it was time to call it a day. But he was stopped. Chang Feng told Lun Chen to let Huang Chan go, and he will give him anything only the protagonist desires. Is she willing to give her life for it? He was clearly pissed at the bastard for his words. The Grand Master noticed that the man was preparing a stealthy attack. It was as if he had mentally warned the protagonist about it. But the kid noticed the attack that flew from his back. That blow finished off the werewolf. Yunqi pushed the man and said that it was very shameless. A fire dragon spear appeared in his hand. A sword also appeared in Weitsang's hands. The kid realized it was their spiritual weapon. No one expected to see a battle of immortals here. He has cultivated for so long, it's still weak. Weitsang has something to remember. But then another attack flew at him. The Empress Dowager announced that Lun Chen had won. She also announced that the Lantern Festival was over. She took Chu Yao with her to return to the palace. Chang Feng hates Lung Chen. That kid ruined all his plans and killed his loyal general. While everyone was celebrating Lun Chen's victory, Chang Feng remembered this disgrace and the guy himself. His friends immediately ran up to him, and he asked what was wrong with the Shifen. As it turned out, they sent him home right away, and he was fine. Brother Moon was too cool today. The fourth prince didn't think that the Lun Chen had already reached this layer. The subordinate wondered if it was worth recounting to destroy it, but there's no need to rush, because he already knows his weaknesses. And as long as he has those weaknesses, they can be exploited. In the evening, the protagonist went to the house of Shifeng's family. After treating his wounds, he asked for a secret room to purify the flame beast. It was his first flame of the beast. It was an unruly cat. He wondered how she would continue to resist him. The kid started gathering all his energy into a tribute pull. This unruly cat had no more strength left to resist. As a result, his meridians increased several times. He didn't even realize what it was. Suddenly, the kid started screaming. He woke up in some cool place. He saw that it was actually a beautiful place. Meng Qi suddenly appeared and said that all of his clothes had burst into flames, so she decided to help him get naked. Chu Yao also appeared and asked if the Agile sister could help him after all. They wanted to help him wash up. They on either side of him kissed him. And then he woke up again and realized it was another dream. He had really fainted during the purification. He also trashed the room with his antics. Lun Chen had safely advanced to the 8th QI condensation slot. And as soon as he left the Shai family manor, he met a person of Yunqi. He was handed a petition to report to the Alchemists Association. The kid thanked the Grand Master for his help yesterday, but the one to thank is the Great Master. Also, the Grand Master has something for the guy. Perhaps the protagonist knows why he and Wei Cao are bickering like cat and dog. The kid replied that he didn't know that. Yunqi replied that it was because of this plaque. When he and Wei Cao were junior disciples in the same sect as him. They were both endowed with heavenly talent. But Master preferred Yunqi and handed him the tablet. This angered the Wei Cao, and they had been enemies ever since. Grand Master Yunqi's loving wife intervened and lost her life. So that's why Beiqi looks so much like the late Master's wife. They wanted to trick me into stealing the plaque. The protagonist asked why it was so special. The ultimate dream of all alchemists is the Valley of the Pill, and this is proof of training in the Valley of the Pill. The now Great Master wants to give this tablet to the protagonist, but it's an ancestral relic, so the guy wouldn't dare take it. but Yunqi insisted on it. One of the master's last covenants was to ask him to pass this on to his disciple, and the protagonist is now the most worthy to accept the plaque. One must become a pill king before the age of 20, and then he can present this plaque to enter the Pill Valley. He thanked the master and said that he wouldn't let him down. Yunqi had paid a dear price for this plaque. After all, he could now complete some business in peace. The kid immediately had troubling thoughts about his words, but the master calmed him down and explained that he was not going to die in a battle with Wei Tsang. A guest has arrived at the young master's house. No one expected to see a Chu fan here. He asked Lung Chen to save his sister. Big sister is now under house arrest, waiting for the 1st of October to pass her off as Xie Chanfen. This news infuriated him. The main character asked if he could see her. Chu Feng replied that he can do so since he is her younger brother. But about the others, he doesn't know. Just over a month to go. He needs to go to the auction of the Beyond the Clouds Tarum to purchase the star herb to remove her inner restriction. He replied to the prince not to worry, for the guy will definitely save her. Chu Feng kneeled down and thanked the Weo main character. When he helped the prince up, he realized that his development was also blocked. He asked for permission to explore his tugging. The kid asked him to be patient for a while, and then some kind of pin appeared in his hands. Lun Chen explained that it was an underground feather pin that his sister also had. He removed the poisoned needle from his body. This meant that the prince could now improve himself. He also gave the prince some pills that hide the aura. He should take one every 7 days and no one would notice anything. The prince is very grateful to Brother Cheng. While waiting for the auction day, Lun Chen continued to cultivate and create high-ranked pills with his newly obtained beast fire. He was preparing them to be sold at the auction. A man led the protagonist as well as his friends to the auction. The great Prince Chu Yang and Xia Changfeng also came, and this person had the same aura as the one that killed Li Hao. A girl greeted them at today's Huayun Pavilion meeting. She is its auctioneer, whose name is Sai Wei Yang. The guy thought he had heard that name somewhere before. She also asked the honorees not to be stingy. Everyone discussed the fact that she is quite energetic. Lun Chen said, "The fat man, don't stare at her like that." This girl, although seductive, is still afraid at the blood concentration stage. This auction house is not so simple. I have also arrived the same teacher who taught Chu Yao and Chu Feng. He is on par with Lun Chen's father and is one of the 3 supreme masters of the empire. It's suspicious that one of them is staying here somewhere. The next item in the auction was a 1,000-year-old star grass. The starting price was 500,000 gold coins. The bid immediately skyrocketed to 800,000, and the main character offered 2 million. Finally, this weed will be his, but he offered 3 million. Lun Chen offered 3 million and 100,000. The teacher, of course, found a use for these flowers, but since he needed them so badly, he was willing to concede. But Princess Baichi offered 4 million. Lung Chen's wallet isn't that deep. The main character offered 5 million. The princess bid 10 million. This time he offered 20 million. Chang Feng said that 20 million would already hit him pretty hard. Therefore, she didn't bid higher. Just as he wanted, the protagonist ended up obtaining a 1,000-year-old stargrass. And then he made Chang Feng shell out 200 million gold for a single battle technique. Chang Feng held a grudge for a long time. And now it's time for the last item. Specifically 2 healing pills of the highest grade. They obviously didn't understand what the merchandise was, because someone said they thought there would be something of value. These pills are definitely not going to be cheap. The girl replied that the distinguished guests didn't quite understand what this pill was. So she suggested inviting a QE condensation expert to the stage and let him evaluate the effect of this pill. The girl asked if there was such a person here. One man volunteered after all. She asked if this master was afraid of pain. This man's name is Zhao Dayang, and he asked not to be offended by such questions. Lun Chen assumed that this man looked more like an idiot than a master. In that case, the girl apologizes in advance. She cut off the man's arm. The man shouted, "Did this little one really want to die?" She presented the pill to Mr. Zhao and asked why not try it now. He agreed to eat the pill after all, and his arm began to recover. Now everyone has admitted that it's a divine pill, and it really works. Unexpectedly, the lost cure would be revived a century later. His fingers will be saved. Also, the girl announced that there remains a pill that builds muscle. The starting price is 100 million. The bid immediately went up to 300 million. He recognized that this girl is really good at business. It's a great marketable tool. Mr. Inho bet 500 million. The girl asked if the bid would be higher. Lung Chen bet 600 million. He recognized that this child was very troubled. Inho bet 700 million, followed by a guy betting 800. Young Master Lun Chen bet 800 million, so she asked if Mr. Inho would raise the bet. The man stated that Lun Chen didn't have that much money, and he was just showing off now. She asked the man to temper his ardor. Mr. Yun Qi had given his trading quota to Master Chen Shiji long before the auction. Yingho decided to bid 1 billion. The guy informed his brother Moon that they were almost broke and it was scary, but the guy immediately offered $1.5 billion. Inho asked if he really needed the pill so badly. Lung Chen replied that it was all right, for it was no use to him. He just wondered why Inho and his father are both pillars of the empire, but the protagonist's father guards the borders and is poor. Inho lives in a palace on the simple but rich side. This time, he bet 1,510 million, and the protagonist immediately gave up. The auction ended with Inho's victory. The Huayun Pavilion made a lot of money. He was told that Lun Shiji, who is the lord of the pavilion, would like to share with the protagonist. He was also told to go to a separate room for tea and wait. It turns out that she is the lord of the Huayun Pavilion. She only laughed. Afterward, the girl asked if she didn't have you big enough. The protagonist was definitely not expecting this question. The girl behind her said, "Wait, I don't be silly." Wait, I replied that people don't understand the manner of generation. She apologized for her arrogance. In fact, this girl called Bai Ling is actually the leader of the Huayun Pavilion. She was happy to meet the young master of the Lun family. The kid was pleased to meet her too, and asked what he could do for her. It was thanks to the protagonist that this auction was a success. He was given his share of the profits. There was 1 billion gold coins. In addition, this auction allowed her to finish her experience in the wild country, and she would return to the sect soon. So she asked if the young master of the Lun family wanted to go with Bai Ling and join the Huayun sect. The boy replied that he still had some business to attend to that had to do with his family. He thanked her for such a warm welcome. The girl reported that the space ring of many more alchemy materials has been given to the Son of Heaven. This pleased her heart. He thanked Miss Bai. 3 days later, Lun Chen developed the melting star pill. He used the liquid and Zhang pretended to be Chu Feng's bodyguard and went with him to visit Chu Yao. The guards reported that the guards were not authorized to go inside. Chu Feng replied that he was his personal guardian. The man explained to the 7th prince that it was an order from the Empress Dowager. He was sorry, but he had to obey. The prince said he would lower his head to the ground. A 4th prince arrived who had heard that the place was very noisy. He arrived just in time. Chu Feng began to explain the situation for his brother. The protagonist greeted His Highness the 4th prince. The guy hoped he didn't recognize him. The guard explained to the 4th prince that the 7th prince wanted this guard to enter the Yu Yao palace. But the Queen Mother has forbidden outsiders to visit it. The 4th prince said that it was too ridiculous. Does he really think the 7th prince is going to harm his elder sister? He ordered these 2 men to be let in, and he will personally watch over them. The kid had a feeling that the 4th prince knew who he was. But the question was why the prince would help him. They immediately approached Chu Yao. Lun Chen took off his disguise and said it was him. She was so happy to see the guy that she immediately hugged him. The guy apologized for being late. She thought she would never see him again. But he did tell that silly girl he was coming, didn't he? Chu Feng asked. Why didn't he leave the 2 lovebirds alone for a moment? Lung Chen asked Chu Feng to keep watch here. They still have a few things to do. As it turned out, the girl had been drawing his portraits all along, and it started from the beginning of the Lantern Festival. Drawing his image was all she could do. Otherwise, she wouldn't even know what was going on. The girl informed him that she wanted to be his woman. Lung Chen wondered if she really wanted to do that. She replied that she did. They moved to the bed. He wondered again if the girl would regret it later. Chu Yao replied that she could be his woman and she had no regrets. The protagonist immediately asked if she didn't believe him. She didn't realize what had just happened. The power of his soul tells the guy too that she will commit suicide after today. So she really doesn't believe he can save her. Chu Yao apologized to him. She really doesn't want to marry anyone but the main character. The guy revealed that he had brought a melting star pill for her. The girl took the pill of the melting star, and the Lun Chen stayed by her side until the medicine had fully taken effect after 3 hours. In this way, she successfully got rid of her shackles. The main character complained that he is very tired. He also needs to put on his disguise, but suddenly they were stopped. Chu Feng complained that first they wouldn't let them in, and now they wouldn't even let them out. The man apologized, for it was the 4th prince's order. Of course, the protagonist was seen through. The 4th prince observes that Brother Chen is indeed a dragon among men. The prince admires him for his courage and foresight. The protagonist asked the prince how he recognized him. The guy pointed his finger. As it turned out, the ring had the mark of the alchemist's guild on it. Lun Chen asked. Since the guy knows who he is, then why did he help him get into the palace? He reasoned that Chu Yao is his sister after all. He did not want her to marry Chan Feng, but he'll be back in the country in 10 days to prepare for the wedding. In the end, there's nothing the prince can do. He realized this was a great opportunity for him. He thanked the fourth prince and decided to leave first. As soon as the main character left, a woman came out and explained that he was doing a pretty risky thing. As it turned out, it was his mom. He thought it was worth it for Togo. The empress, called Nishigun, knew that her son she would not be able to convince. But that's the fate of the Shah-er. His life is under his control and he will be the ruler of this country. The young gentleman was told that a guest had arrived. The young man noticed that he had been receiving a lot of visitors lately. As it turned out, the same girl who had blocked Brother Chi's attack that day had arrived. They had just separated, and he didn't even recognize her anymore. Lung Chen immediately thanked her for her help. Compared to boyfriend and princess, it's not worth mentioning. This girl is in the same sect as Meng Qi. If she knows about it, so does Meng Qi. This girl's name is Lu Fan-er. She is the younger sister of Meng Qi. The sister asked him to tell her that if he wants to be with her, he must leave that princess. The guy apologized, but he can't do that. It turns out he's seriously going to dump her sister for this princess. But he indicated that he wasn't going to do any of that. A rude and unrighteous man wouldn't be able to catch her sister's eye. It was just a little test, and he passed it. In fact, Meng Qi asked me to give him a gift. It was a red-hot snow wolf. He was glad that Meng Qi always remembered him. Lu Fan shared with him the methods and control of this beast. Lun Chen's powerful soul allowed him to quickly master the elemental method of beast control. After the girl left, the guy intended to continue practicing. But suddenly, he felt the urge to kill. There's no one suspicious in the house. He must leave the place to avoid putting his family in danger. When he had gone a decent distance from his house, he said to show himself in everything. An arrow immediately flew at him. The guy noticed her immediately, but for some reason took in her. They realized that the first of the younger generation was the usual bogeyman. But an arrow immediately flew into one man as well, and the protagonist stood up, inquiring about who had sent them. They immediately attacked to kill him, but he quickly dealt with the two attackers. After that, the man from behind decided to stab him, but the guy had no trouble dealing with this person as well. 2 more people were rapidly approaching him. He skillfully fought off their attacks as well as attacking himself. He dealt with one man first, and then threw a sword that hit right on target. The last man was left, and Lun Chen replied that he would tell him the whole truth if he didn't want to die. Well, he decided to avoid it. The guy guessed that this technique looked a lot like something, but then he sensed that there was someone else here. The man has been watching for quite some time. The guy suggested that he come out and say something. He immediately appeared and replied that this villain was admired by the young master's skills. Lung Chen asked who he was in general. This villain is called Chen Fei, who was appointed by Lord Hao to secretly protect his son and his wife. He didn't expect such an act from his father. The lad replied that it was empty words without proof. But Chen Fei told the young master to look at it. The man showed a bamboo sword. It was his father's first gift to him. He was very fond of the sword then, but after his father left, the sword disappeared with him. So the sword had been with him all this time. Lun Chen ordered the man to come back with him, for he had many questions for him. He warned Vat of the hairdryer for the last time. His Xie empire won't be able to withstand Chan Feng's antics. But the guy replied to Brother Lo that it was all according to his sister's mood. Fortunately, Lun Chen did not die this time. Otherwise, Lun Tianxiao would kill him on the way to the imperial capital, and he would die without a burial place. But with Brother Lo's strength, why wouldn't he get rid of Lun Tianxiao on his own? This idiot doesn't even realize that Lun Tianxiao is a strong Yi Qin of the empire. Does he really think that he can be killed so easily? If they fail, who will take the responsibility if the information is leaked? Chan Feng will no longer act without authorization. Brother Lo walked away and called them a group of idiots. After 3 days, Lun Chen sent Chen Fei away. He also provided him with plenty of nutritious period to increase the strength of the army. On the other hand, the day of Chan Fei's homecoming is approaching. Lun Chen needs to improve his aim and combat power. He can also practice more effectively in the mountains with a large aura. The number of hurricanes in the body increased to 10. This art of the tyrannical body of the 9 stars is strange, Amon reported back. Lung Chen asked to kill his victim with an axe. Amon replied that he had used it. The axe Brother Moon gave him is very useful. A light blow will blow a horse to death. The guy didn't buy an axe for him to wield. He also noticed that it was a deer, not a horse. He was approached by a beast that the guy's boyfriend called Xiao Shu. This monster eats a lot and grows fast. The The protagonist told Amon to use an axe to cut the meat to a size that could be fried. Suddenly, the guard said to inform the prince that there was someone up ahead. They definitely didn't expect to see Lun Chen here. The boy informed the prince that he was here to see him off. But he was certain that the protagonist had come here to kill the king. But he's better suited to the title of sick bastard. Chang Feng ordered Wei Meng to go and cut off that boy's head. Amon decided to take the big guy on. He immediately blocked the sword strike with his axe. But he was still wounded. Amon also, they were lagging behind him. This guy is on par with his opponent. They took aim. The protagonist immediately jumped back from the arrows. As he began to perform his technique, the others shouted that they needed to spread out. But before they could do anything, they had already been blown up. Chang Feng didn't realize when this boy had a new friend. The protagonist asked again who had imprisoned Chu Yao. He'd better just dream of finding out. Chang Feng is at the peak of his blood clotting period. Chang Feng immediately threw a punch at him, and the protagonist tried to block his leg. The protagonist's opponent continued his attack. Lung Chen lands a leg kick. Chang Feng immediately jumped away from him. Chang Feng immediately used the blood on his hands. Lun Chen used the palm of the fire cloud. Their power caused a huge explosion. They were flung in different directions, and the main character is a bit of a mess too. Chang Feng was able to stand up quietly. Lun Chen immediately attacked him with his sword. The guy dodged. Suddenly, he barked out that they had something to discuss. But Lun Chen clearly didn't think so. He certainly doesn't need to negotiate. Those two seemed to be okay too. Amon was not hurt in the slightest by such a master. Lun Chen also joined their fight. Meanwhile, someone was already watching them. He noticed that this was what was expected from the son of Lun Tianzhu. It looked like it was the first time Amon had killed someone. Lung Chen asked the boy if he was all right. He replied that he was in full. As long as Brother Moon thinks they should die, then they should die. It's a brutal fact of life. In this situation, it was decided whether they or those who attacked them would live. So, there was no choice. And that's when the protagonist noticed the Inho. He made the point that the younger generation is intimidating. The protagonist guessed he was sent by the fourth prince. Inho was defeated by the protagonist's father and lost his finger before the auction resumed. Therefore, he also wanted to see the confused face of Lun Tianxiao. Inho is not worthy of being as famous as his father. He should stop talking nonsense and concentrate on the fight. The guy also wanted to strike him out, but Inho abruptly appeared behind him, after which he stabbed the guy in the back. He was ready to kill the protagonist, but Amon prevented him from doing so. He realized he couldn't get through this man. Inho shoved it away from him. He was immediately pounced upon by the Lun Chen, but the man wounded him with his punch. After which, Inho asked if the guy knew the difference between the two. Gathering qi to restore qi is to restore the power of coagulation. The Yijing realm is a combination of the two, which is 100 times stronger. The boy recognized his rightness, although he could destroy the strong blood-clotting realm. The Yijin realm was indeed better than them by several grades. The guy replied that Inho was right, however he certainly couldn't have seen that reception. He hit the ground, whereupon the Czech shouted for Amon to follow him quickly. This kid put up a low-level veil. Amon shouted out where they were going. The main character just told him to speed up and follow him. But from behind Amon came Inho, who said he was not going anywhere. She immediately struck him with her sword. Inho didn't understand what this boy's bones were made of, or how they could even block a sword. Amon was looking to counter with a punch, but the man has successfully dodged it, after which he knocked Amon off his feet. Inho shouted out that if Lun Chen has any more courage, then let him come out here. He will reward the protagonist. He immediately noticed that something had started flying at him. He shouted that he would destroy Lun Chen. The protagonist may not be able to beat him, but he can easily humiliate him. Suddenly he noticed a monkey sitting on the same branch as him. She gave away his location with her screams. Inho heard that too. He immediately rushed toward the sound. The guy tried to block his sword once. Suddenly Inho felt the poison, but he wasn't entirely sure it was the same poison. The boy confirmed his hunch. He called the main character a bastard, and he wanted to finally end it. But the poisonous aura affects the heart, and the protagonist immediately wondered if he had an antidote. Inho shouted that he was going to die today. That's exactly what he needs to know. He unleashed his power. It was the attack that struck the protagonist, which caused him to fall into the river. Inho realized that he needed to purge himself of the poison. Suddenly he woke up. He also noticed a monster watching him, after which a roar could be heard. Lun Chen didn't disappoint him at all. He had been waiting for him for a long time and had brewed some fragrant tea. The guy asked if the prince was aware of who he was with. The fourth prince replied that this guy came here to kill him. But the thing is, he can't kill the prince. Chang Feng died by his own stupidity, and he needs a new ally. The man asked, and what he wanted this prince for. His plan had been implemented ever since his mother married Feng Ming. He was originally a pawn. His biggest problem right now is Lun Tianxiao, and he has a way to solve it. The man asked what the plan was, and the prince told him to look at it. He marveled that this fellow knew how to communicate with savages. The prince is the winner. Lung Chen killed Chang Feng. That's all he can do for Xia Guo's friendship. And also, the Lun mansion was rightfully destroyed. He pinned Lun Tianxiao against the wall, and when the time comes, Pulling Xiao seems to be faced with a choice. The blond man asked what his terms were. The prince replied that he needed help to get rid of the stigma of being a pawn and become the lord of the Feng Min Empire. They made a deal. Some mysterious voice was telling the protagonist to wake up. He still has many missions to complete. There are still many enemies that need to be destroyed. His pro-destiny is to destroy this world. From yelling that he needed to wake up now, he actually did. In front of him was a stranger who was glad he was finally awake. She was very worried about him. The boyfriend informed her that it was unacceptable, but the girl replied that there was nothing wrong here. She picked up the main character, and now he is her man. He certainly didn't understand what was in her head. She prays to the god of the forest every day in hopes of meeting a strong man. As a result, she met him on a hunting trip a few days ago. So it turns out she is his savior. He thanked her. This girl's name is Xiaohua. She can't treat his wounds, so he should thank the god of the forest. This girl is too superstitious. She decided to go introduce him to her family. There were too many of her relatives there, and the girl reported that her man was awake. He immediately thanked them for their help. The man replied that we can do it without formalities. Uncle just hopes that he and Xiaohua will have many strong children. Grandpa suggested eating porridge. The guy asked why they weren't eating meat if they had hunted recently. Xiaohua explained that the master, along with the rest of the meat in the village, was sacrificed to the god of the forest. He wondered, since he had been accepted as a sacrifice, if this was even a god. To save Lun Chen, the hunters of the village had to sacrifice 10 monsters. Lun Chen is curious who this greedy god is. He and Xiaohua head out to visit him. They noticed a bear print, so they should be careful. But the girl replied that they could offer the bear as a sacrifice to the god of the forest. Then we need to go back to the village to arm. The boy asked why she was doing that. She explained to the idiot that in this state they are common bear food. She also inquired if the fool had ever killed a monster before. The protagonist replied that he had killed 1 or 2 while he was in the clotting sphere. Meanwhile, they were attacked by the same bear. He could easily defend himself from its claws, after which he struck the bear. The guy handled it with ease. He killed a rank 1 monster. He also took this bear. She didn't realize where he'd disappeared to. The guy explained that he was now sealed in a ring of space. The girl assumed that this guy was also God. He decided to give her a ring and she too would become a god. Xiaohua should concentrate the thought in the center of her forehead and then direct it into the ring. But then she must envelop him with an aura through her fingers. She was actually able to do it. The girl asked how this ring fit so much into it. The guy replied that one could fit even more after a little practice. After he killed Chan Feng, he only took back the 3 types of battle artifacts he had gotten at the auction. The rest of the items were handed over to Xiaohua. They finally arrived at the place where the god of the forest is. Whenever their people are injured, they come to the tree god for treatment. In return, the tree god asks them to give him some meat. And for his wound, the tree god put a price of 10 monsters. They decided to greet him. Suddenly he heard a voice saying that he shouldn't do it, and she couldn't afford it. It was a tree goddess. Suddenly, Xiaohua fell asleep when she saw her. The tree goddess replied that the girl had simply fallen asleep. The dialogue between them is not for prying ears, and the protagonist wondered if she really is a god. She's the one they call God here. She's just from the spirit world herself. He didn't expect that the spirit world actually existed.